So you absolutely think it's no big deal if we don't have speech therapy in high school like people keep talking about? Well, unfortunately, there's a reason why we have school, and it's because, not every parent or guardian has expertise to be able to teach children. And so therefore, it's just easier if we have someone who can do the job with lots of children. That's the way it's always been known to be done. And since 2003, we've pretty much figured out that there just aren't enough parents capable of teaching children kind of what they're not supposed to ask once they turn 14. So therefore, this is the way it goes. For just about all the questions you need to realize you cannot ask others when you turn 14, unfortunately, only someone with proper teaching expertise can help you with that, because they're the only ones who can actually help make sure that get things right. See, if we didn't have speech therapy in grade 9, there's hardly any chance at all anyone would become familiar with personal questions. They wouldn't have any way to know what they can and cannot talk to people about. They're not as likely to be permitted around children with a license to be allowed to teach them. They may not even be able to earn themselves a marriage relationship. Having friends at all is just very hard. There's a lot of things you can get away with when you're young that you can't at age 14, or once you get there anyway. You may even have a harder time to be able to speak with people, and you may have trouble being able to get service from people. And down here at the bottom, with the final result with the black and white stripes, what do you know? You don't even have that credit at all. And then it makes you look like you just don't belong in society, because you just don't. And it's a shame they lost to someone who just said it's no big deal if they don't teach someone. Right here, as you can see, this does kind of evolve around some ways of doing things, like start with the worst choice at the top, then not too bad but not too good, and well done. A lot of times the speech therapy class in grade 9, called What's Appropriate to Talk About with Who and When, revolves around personal question needs. It's almost always started off with, never ask anybody the kind of personal question you don't want anybody to ask you. Most of them usually teach them in a perceptive manner, like you see here. As you can see, a question that you're never supposed to ask someone, it's rated red X, kind of like you see in the lane control signal where you can't drive in that lane. That means you can't talk about it with anyone. Makes them uncomfortable. The yellow X, there's a limit to those kind of questions. They can only be talked about at certain times and places. Kind of way the yellow X in the lane control signal warns you to exit the lane, and if it's flashing, that means you can only turn left in there. Now, anything you can ask people about, like, what's on your wish list? Do you have any kids? Do you have any pets? Those are personal questions rated green arrow. And that's kind of how a lot of those things work, if you see what I mean. That's how they help people know those things. I mean, the top 3 red X personal questions you probably were told when you were 14 were sexuality, religion, and politics. Those are the 3 main red X personal subjects and questions. Over here, you may be quite shocked to see what would happen if we didn't have speech therapy in grade 10. Becoming familiar with acceptable responses to personal questions is the next step. Once you've learned about what personal questions are acceptable to ask others and what aren't, they also have to teach you different responses, and they also have to teach you how to respond to what people say properly. People can say they have a right to whatever responses they pick and choose, but in order to have that kind of right away, you have to agree to listen to other people who've told you the same thing. You can only have a say in what responses you'll get from others if you pay that same respect to others. That means you use responses on others that you want used on you, and that's that. See, without these kind of ways of teaching, we wouldn't be able to teach children acceptable responses. You wouldn't be able to be trusted or anything. And usually within both years, they also practice with confidentiality, and it's not too hard to do at all. I mean, once each week, the English teacher is supposed to leave the classroom and say they're making a phone call to someone. If they know who it is and were told not to share their name, they so state. And if they were told they can share their name, they'll do so. But if they're not sure, they always say they'll tell them when they get back. It just makes more sense that way, if you see what I mean. Now, pause for just a second and take a look at the list that I have here about the responses that are acceptable to use in personal questions versus the ones that are not. Great job. Now I think you know right from wrong. Now here, you can see what happens if we lack speech therapy in grade 11. Grade 11 is where they take the time to teach you about how to discuss things with people so you can finish the year being able to talk to people about things without having trouble talking to others, speaking the right way. And it's pretty easy because they team you up and then they pick a subject for you to talk about, and that helps you learn how to talk to people the right way. And you can't cheat either, so you gotta be nice. If we did have speech therapy in grade 9, just think about it. There at least 95% of the people in our world would know about personal questions, proper things to talk about, being around children, maybe earn a marriage relationship, have friends, able to maintain speaking with people, and able to get service from people. And here, with the 10th grade speech class, if it works out, you become familiar with acceptable responses to personal questions, you being able to respond to what people say properly, being permitted to have a say in what responses you'll take from other people, being permitted to teach children what's acceptable response-wise. You can even be trusted in addressing the person you're listening to, such as your spouse or trainer or instructor. Having friends at all, that'd be great. You can maintain speaking with people, allowed to get service from people too. And here, with the one in grade 11, you become familiar with discussion etiquette, you being able to know how to speak to people the right way, being able to teach children how to discuss things properly, being trusted to speak with your partner in a relationship in much needed situations. And you can have the kind of friendship from being kind, able to maintain a discussion with people and tell them about how well you're doing. You can even be trusted with lots of things. Now there's something I want you to pay attention to. As a parent or guardian, you're the responsible adult, and so therefore, if you do not have a way to teach your child, you must fess up. You must simply tell your child you can't do it, and they have to turn it over to the district. I said, you're gonna have to tell them, well, do the class in school, and then let me know how you're doing, and we'll do just fine. And that's all we gotta do. I mean, grade 8 is not far enough for speech therapy, and you know that. Usually during the elementary years, I try to play games and help you become familiar with situations. In intermediate school or junior high, they always kind of help raise awareness with things. They help you kind of know what to do in a situation when you're grown. Then high school, they really do need to take time to train you about appropriateness in the class, so that, especially things that are very advanced, that's important. I mean, not all parents have what they need to teach their children about that, and so therefore, as a person who works for the school district, you've got to have this class. I mean, that's the way it goes, and that's just the way it is. I mean, you may be your child's first teacher, but if there's some things you find you can't teach someone, you make sure the district knows about it right away. Don't hide it, and don't lie, because lying will just kind of get you and your child both in trouble. And you could get in terrible trouble for trying to, if it's reported they did something bad enough and you didn't stop them, they'll think like maybe you just can't be trusted with children, and that's bad. Lying about whether or not you can teach is wrong. Makes you look guilty even when you're innocent.